I'll pass to you a message from Vice Yamin, 1978. We lived at that time in the province of Lagman, where my father worked as a school teacher. I was around 7 years old. It was a sunny day and I played outside with my friends when I saw that a few unknown gunmen arrested my father and my uncle. My uncle was just 3 months ago married. I and nobody didn't know why they were arrested. Common was that in those days a lot of people were taken by the government's secret police. After 2 days, they were transferred to Kabul, Ministry of Interior Affairs. Just in 20 minutes, they have been transported by the AXA agents to Shedhء investigation in torture center. After 3 days, we succeeded to reach the headquarters of AXA to bring them some clothes. But the officers told us that that is not necessary anymore. We don't need to come again. We were desperate. Almost 35 years.
The Social Association of Afghan Justice Seekers. Dear friends, first of all, let me thank the Federation of Afghan Refugee Organization and AIR. All Afghan compatriots and democratic and progressive individuals and organizations who gathered here to raise their voice against injustice. In the beginning, I would like to say a few words about Social Association of Afghan Justice Seekers. Social Association of Afghan Justice Seekers was established in 2007 by a group of victims' families. Our aim is to raise the voice of victims and to bring justice in Afghanistan. Our association looks as a main task to document war crimes and bring to justice the perpetrators of such crimes who are having full immunity under the present government in Afghanistan. Since 2007, we have arranged several programs for justice seeking, which fortunately linked us to a big number of victims' families across the world, the country. Last year, the release of death list containing the names of 5,000 victims who were murdered by Russian servants between 1978 and 1979 once again reopened the wounds of our people and the victims' families.
We also have a message from Assembly of Afghan Justice Seekers in Ottawa in Canada. Dear friends and countrymen, participants in the Hague seminar on the Afghan death lists. On behalf of the Afghan Assembly of Justice Seekers in Canada, I salute you and your noble cause in pursuit of justice to all victims of atrocities over the past 35 years in our benighted country, Afghanistan. The Afghan Assembly of Justice Seekers is composed of the friends and families of the victims of atrocities committed by the Khalqi-Pakani regime. But we feel that justice cannot be selective, and it is only in calling for the perpetrators of all atrocities committed during the past 3.5 decades in our country that we can hope to honor the victims and see justice served. During these past three and a half decades, a whole Afghan generation has come up for whom what occurred in years gone by is hearsay history, and there are many who suffered and witnessed firsthand the unspeakable horrors and atrocities of those days, who are either with us no more or whose memories have become dim with the passage of years.
He is the founder and leader of Hakim Nasser Khusrau committee or association in Afghanistan, and he's also the leader of Ismailiyas in Afghanistan. Well, his message is 3 pages, And I'm not asked to read it, only that he is also a victim of this victim in this case, and his two brothers were also murdered. So that's why he has written this message. We thank him a lot for sending this message, and as he has asked, we ask all Afghans to support this case and to bring those who committed the crimes in justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
35 years ago, I was a small boy. And I will never forget the night that my father was taken from our home at midnight. He was taken by Khalqis and Parchamese gangs, a slave and ruthless regime who were created and brought to power by Russians. I was waiting for my father 34 years and always had the faith that he is coming back one day. But with around 5,000 victim list that were exposed and published by Dutch police last year, I found my father's name on that list. His name is at 4,630 positions. When I saw his name, the hope that I had for his coming back, it just flew away, vanished, and is gone. My father was not a killer and not a criminal. He was a great man. He loved his people and his country. And he always wanted to serve his people and his country the best way that he can. Whenever I watch the skulls and bones of those victims on TV or on the internet or on the pictures, I ask myself which of those skulls or bones belong to my father. Maybe that one or maybe this one. And I ask again myself what kind of destiny had my father. Because those 5,000 victims, each of them became a martyr in very barbaric and brutal ways. Many of them, during the tortures, lost their lives. Others were shot, executed, and buried alive. So that's why I ask myself what kind of destiny had my father. Those 5,000 victims are just a small part of Khalqis and Parchamese crimes in our country.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nasim Rahrao, and I live in the Netherlands. I was a political prisoner in Polytechnic prison in Kabul from 1981 to 1991. During this time, I went through all kinds of physical and psychological tortures in the Shudeh' detention center of Khat and later in Polytechnic. I was also witness to the torture of hundreds of other prisoners. I was part of a group of political activists struggling against the Soviet occupation and the puppet regime. 14 of my friends and comrades who were with me in the group were executed. They were, as you can see, Nader Ali Dehati, who was an engineer, Shapur Rohingpur, an economist, Muhammad Ali, an engineer, Anis Azad, a poet and a writer, Mirwais, also an engineer, Zubair Ahmad, engineer, Ahmad Zia, a lawyer, Dawood, an engineer, Naim Azhar, an economist, Siddiq Joya, a doctor, Abdul Wahid Rohingpur, also a doctor, Zamarai Siddiq, an engineer, Muhammad Amin, an engineer, and Ziaullah, an army officer. These educated young men had either been taken from their homes or from their place of work. I was taken from my home, and for 10 years my fate was in the balance. For 10 years I expected to be taken out and executed any minute. Every time the door of my cell opened, I expected to be called to execution. Every time I died and remained alive. As a victim and as a witness, I bear testimony to the uncounted crimes committed by the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan and Khat against the prisoners. I was witness to countless prisoners who were with me being taken out for execution.
all Afghans are directly or indirectly being the victims of war. I am also one of victims who lost 2 members of my family, my 2 uncles. They were just 20 and 22 years old. They were killed by the puppet regime of People Democratic Party of Afghanistan. They were imprisoned for 1 year. Later they managed to break the prison with some other inmates. The torture and imprisonment didn't stop their struggle against the puppet regime. They were participating actively in the war against regime. The intelligence of regime were active in cities and surrounding villages. After the prison break, the regime was in searching of them. Weeks and months, they were living in hideouts away from home and family. In those days, there were no communication technology. The father and mother were getting worried without knowing the whereabouts of their sons. And some villagers were coming with news that they were arrested by the regime. As you all know, that the parents are getting more worried about the well-being of their children than God. Moms were not in good health. At the time, she was refusing to eat her medicines day and night, sittings by herself, asking that she wants to see her sons. Finally, after a few weeks, one night, as the darkness was covering the eyes of everything, but not the eyes intelligence which was on our home. Both brothers entered home through the back doors as mother saw her sons got up from bed and started kissing them. And the tears were coming down on her face. It was like it for everyone in home.
Party Crimes, Volume 1, Party Crimes, Volume 2. I have written 800 pages about party crimes in Afghanistan. I want to say you just a short story. I was 12 years in شدهء prison and Polycharchy prison. 12 years. It is not short time. I'm a victim. When I was in شدهء, I had a KGB investigator. The first night, he asked me, "Are you anti-Semitism?" I told him yes. Yes, S-Y-E-S. Very short. After that answer, 4 months I was under torture, continuously torture. Dag en nacht. He was 1 year in Aqsa and 3 months in Qom. After Aqsa came Qom. This nice book. Here has written more than 200 people which is executed. Here is name and tortured.
Very proud that I was given the opportunity to contribute to the translation of this book, to a selection of these 2 books. It's actually the documentation of a small part of a significant and enormous crime and human rights violation in the recent history of Afghanistan. This book is a collection of a few short stories, poems, and observation of the author, Mr. Farhood. It seems very thin if you look at it, but at the same time, it presents a big value. It shows us the importance of the documentation of the committed crimes by the members of the Democratic People's Party of Afghanistan and initiated by the leaders and the secret police of that party and the ruling regime. The party members and leaders tries even in this country to falsify the history and discharge themselves of the committed crimes. It is the duty of the victims and survivors, we, to be the voice of those their voices have been deprived by war criminals and mass murders. In order to get the murders for the justice, we have to collect more evidence here in Afghanistan and everywhere in the world.
I think Nelson Mandela says, I can forgive, but I can't forget. I don't know I can forgive or not, but I can't forget. For this reason I wrote 800 pages about party crimes.
We should not forget that the publisher of this book is also in this bias. She is Miss Manisha Nadiri. She is actually the director of Shahmama Publication Center in Tasrif. She has published this book. We thank him, and I ask you to applaud for her.
سی سال از فاجعه ثور می گذرد، اما حزب دموکراتیک خلق تا هنوز نه معذرت خواهی کرده و نه به اعتراف دست زده است. جانیانی که پولیگون و گورهای دست جمعی را به وجود آوردند تا هنوز حاضر نشدند که به خاطر جنایات و خیانت‌هایشان در برابر قربانیان و مردم افغانستان سر تعظیم فرود آورند. معذرت بخواهند و به جنایاتشان اعتراف نمایند. قربانیان و مردم افغانستان عدالت می‌خواهند. ما قربانیان و بازماندگان خانواده های شهدا به خاطر جنایات حزب دموکراتیک خلق را محکوم می‌نماییم که جنایت و خیانت در افغانستان تکرار نگردد. ما به خاطر دادخواهی می‌کنیم که آدمکشان و شکنجهگران را محکوم کرده باشیم. ما به خاطر سیمینار هاگ را در رابطه لیست کشتار 5000 اعدامی بیگناه دایر نمودیم تا جنایتکاران خلقی و پرچمی بدانند که جنایت، نسل کشی و نقض حقوق بشر در افغانستان که به وسیله اقصا، کام، خاد و واد صورت گرفته است تا هنوز فراموش نگردیده است و ثبت تاریخ شده است. اردیبهشت ماه که می آید، هر قطره خون که در رگ گل هاست، یک رودبار دلهره و درد می شود. کین ماه گوییا تا واپسین صحیفه تاریخ، دیباچه کتاب شقاوت، آتش فشان برزخ تقویم و چتری فراز مسند نامرد می شود. اردیبهشت ماه که می آید، هر قطره خون که در رگ گل هاست، یک رودبار دلهره و درد می شود. کین ماه گوییا تا واپسین صحیفه تاریخ، دیباچه کتاب شقاوت، آتش فشان برزخ تقویم و چتری فراز مسند نامرد می شود. این آواز صدا و پیام تمام خانواده های قربانیان جنگ های 30 سال اخیر است. با درود بر روان پاک شهدای افغانستان، بدرود.